Dane and I thought about it. We did try to we made a copper hook out of a float copper we found camping. We didn't catch anything with it, but we rolled an awl, or actually Dane did. And I went back and forth with him on this. Some people think, if a copper's too soft, it'll, if you have a heavy fish on there, it'll straighten out, but not if you look at some of these copper hooks, the shafts are triangular shaped. And another thing is they're sometimes put on the front of spears to hook on to fish in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the shape of the hook, the shaft, it being triangulated, if it's heated or cold worked, is going to make it harder or softer. I think these would have all been known, these factors. And the reason this malleability hypothesis is so important is because this explains why I think copper was so integral. If you just look at it from a straight economic standpoint, it was useful for creating technologies for living on water, fishing, woodworking, making boats, birch bark canoes, awls, you need holes. And if you have more copper, you can create better technology for fishing and canoes. And then you have a natural feedback loop because populations get used to that and they need more of it. And this would explain why it wasn't just float copper. I think this is an important thing that I want to hear your opinion on. They clearly could find float copper. It's all over. But the fact that people mined and went, and it was so extensively mined and quarried, if you want to call it quarried, that suggests to me that a regular supply of copper was becoming critical. Like they needed it on a regular basis to be able to access it. That means to me that it's pretty important and vital to their economic worldview. And I think you're taking more of a cultural, spiritual view of this. But yeah, I guess my take is I think we're missing this malleability hypothesis. And just what are your thoughts? I want to hear both supporting or against, or what. I want to hear your full ideas on that.
Yeah, happy to share my opinion on it. And I alluded to this earlier and talked about it a little bit. It's the qualities of metals that make them so unique and make them so important. It's not necessarily just, like I said, I have a thing that can cut, I can make another thing that can cut, but there are
Mm-hmm.
qualities of them that make them unique. The ability to say, make a fish hook
Mm-hmm.
and curve that around. That malleability is something stone doesn't have.
Right.
Um, one of the things I talk about actually in the last publication is you often look at stone as a reductive technology. To make something a stone, you take something away. You look at ceramics as a additive technology. In order to make a pot, you have to add water, you have to add temper, clay. Metals are a transformative technology. You can take something and you can essentially make it into something else without taking or adding anything to it, right? And that's the thing with copper, right? That's that malleability that you're talking about, that
Mm-hmm.
you're able to then work it into, say, a fish hook or something such as that. One thing I'll say about float copper, there is a disadvantage of float copper, and I think Larry pointed this out to me at one point, is that essentially it's picked up by the glaciers and tumble, 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 tumble. It is essentially excessively hard worked, which means it's
Mm.
brittle and it's full of flaws. And if you were to then only rely on float copper, you're going to be working with copper that has a lot of flaws in it. That's not to say you can't find good pieces. You definitely can. But you got to control those pieces. If you're to go and get a piece that's still in the ground and you're mining it yourself, as we talked about, maybe you're setting that fire to keep it that way,
Mm-hmm.
you're then working with a potentially better high quality piece of copper. Now, again, I haven't tested that
Mm.
either. But that's one, idea with that is why you would go and mine it.
Mm-hmm.
As for fish hooks, yeah, that'd be a really interesting study to do. I know I've seen fish hooks of like bone. They're almost like straight, and then they have
Right.
the thing, and then when they swallow them, it's not a hook, right? It's like
Right.
a straight thing. And it would be really interesting. I know Michelle Bever, she has a laboratory of experimental archaeology where she runs experiments. A lot of the work is, like you said, it's been looking at kind of impact stuff and kind of like penetration. I know she's
Right.
done stuff with awls, she's done stuff with projectile points. That might be another interesting study for her and her students to possibly pick up. Having a lab, having students interested in some of this stuff, that might be a designated, a source
Yeah.
that could always be knocked upon. Like, hey, you guys interested in a study like this? Because a lot of these ideas, right? Somebody hasn't, let's test it, right?
Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping to inspire it with this conversation. It makes sense. I know there's hooks from fish hooks in the Pacific from the Pleistocene. And like you said, they're big and they're made of mollusk shells and they bend themselves essentially in a bigger mouth fish. Like they embed themselves in the fish mouth. It's not like a hook that we see with iron with the barbs. The issue we have with Lake Superior, and it may not be an issue, maybe I am not fully up to speed on
Mhm.
literature, but the fish mouth, the fish shapes of the mouth in Lake Superior would have been very small. And the shape of the mouth is very important for the hook. And so there's things that have to go into that. Like you can make hooks with shell for catching big mouth fish, but small mouth fish, you certainly need smaller hooks. And smaller hooks are a lot harder to make with bone and shell. So then I think smaller hooks would be more copper friendly. Again, all this needs work, but it could explain, you could, I think, make the case for small hooks. Metal is functionally more efficient. It can be recycled. It's, I don't know how the heck you could test that. You'd have to have an aquarium with fish and different hooks. I don't even know how you would do
Just
it.
go fishing. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that this summer. We took rooster tails made of copper, iron. We couldn't catch anything on the old copper reproduced fish hook. But it's kind of hard to have controlled experiments when you're getting stuck in the weeds.